So I'm so excited to welcome you today to our fierce conversation. And I'm more excited than usual because this is, I know a lot about what we're going to talk about today can be very taboo to some people and a sensitive subject. And I think the women in this group and those who are going to be hearing this later on, who are not in this group, know me as someone who is not afraid to talk about things that are taboo. So everybody, I want you to join me in welcoming Olivia Dydyna. And she was referred to me by one of my dear friends, Jen, who was also a guest on Fierce Conversations. And we're in a beautiful group called Evolve, and it's for spiritual practitioners of all kinds. And it's growing by the second. So it's so exciting to come across more and more beautiful spiritual people who are doing the work day in and day out, like Olivia. So let's jump right in. Olivia, the first question, actually, let's get started with, I want to give you some
Yeah.
space to just introduce yourself in whatever way, shape, or form you would like to all
Yeah.
of our listeners today.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, I'm Olivia. So I'm an intuitive sex coach. And really, my mission is to help you have better sex. And it's so funny that you said that success aspect because my business name is Be Successful.
Yes.
And I feel like, my whole life, I was actually in customer success before this. I was working
Okay.
my way up the corporate ladder. And I went through so many shifts of understanding, what is success? What does it really look like to have a good relationship, a great relationship in and out of the bedroom, right? But
Right.
specifically, I felt like my experiences, in the bedroom were just cutting it short. Um, it really wasn't up to my expectation. And I started to realize, like during the pandemic, honestly, there's this bigger aspect of disconnection that I believe is the true pandemic. And I only know
Mm,
this because from myself, I was in such a disconnected place of not, following my dreams and doing what I wanted to do, but doing what everyone, told me was the right thing, or maybe what society or culture or my parents,
right.
said. So that was a huge, awakening for me, and it really just propelled me into pursuing something that I always wanted to do but never had the guts to do. So
Yeah. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. And let's set aside that it's, that you're a sex coach, right? But
yeah,
just that in and of itself is something that is so difficult for so many women, regardless of how
yeah,
experienced they are, how long they've been in the
yeah,
workforce or corporate, how successful they are, how much money they make. We go through these peaks and valleys in our life that put us in a place of, who am I and what am I here to do? And am I living,
mhm,
a certain shade of my purpose? Because we have many shades,
totally.
associated with our purpose and in my belief. And do I have the guts to listen to my intuition, to listen to my inner voice, and, put aside everyone out there who says that I should be doing it a certain way and actually be bold and be fierce and step
Yeah,
into a new role because you're being called to it. So I'm
yeah.
assuming that stepping into this role as a sex coach was your fierce moment that you want to talk about.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was definitely a buildup, of different moments, but yeah, like as I mentioned, I always had this dream to be a relationship expert. Like Esther Perel was my role
Yes,
model. But I
yes.
was like, who am I to be a relationship expert if I literally can't even keep a relationship for more than three
Mm,
months? And my dating life is literally an emotional roller coaster.
wow.
So I was definitely the girl that was always seeking love outside of myself. And, this aspect of self love. I was like,
Yeah.
everyone's like, love yourself, love yourself. I'm like, whatever. Like, but really, I really learned that there is this deeper layer of self love that I learned in my tantric, in the tantric path, that was just like this deep inner knowing of yourself. And like, the self love isn't, like I say, the bubble bath. It's you really loving those parts of yourself that you may have rejected and abandoned. There were times that probably were really difficult, and you told yourself that you were unlovable in those moments. And to go back and, re love yourself, reparent yourself, that is like, has been a true journey. So,
Wow. Yeah. So
yeah.
let's dive in a little bit there. It is hard to become
Mhm.
someone who supports others and not do the work yourself, because there will never be alignment, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And
for sure.
so it sounds like before jumping into being a sex coach, or maybe at the same time,
Yeah.
it sounds like you were really doing that work of discovering yourself and figuring out, why do I feel that I cannot provide myself the love that I need? Why am I looking for it outside of myself? Why can I not seek pleasure from my,
Yeah.
sexual partners? Or why am I picking the wrong partners? um
Totally.
Things like that. How did you jump into that for yourself? And how have you been healing that for yourself?
Yeah. So I would say ever since I moved to Miami 5 years ago, I was always, I would say, on the path of like self growth and doing the work, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
But doing the work wasn't going to the workshop and reading the book. Like doing the work, what I realized was feeling those unfelt things that were actually subconsciously affecting my job. They were affecting my relationships at work, my romantic partnerships, like all around. So on the outside, I had it all, but like internally, there was so much going on of like confusion, lack of clarity, deep, deep self-worth issues. Like, although I was like so confident, it still blows my mind like how unworthy I felt inside. I'm like, how's that even like possible?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so it was that deep exploration of feeling those things, whether it was from, childhood. Like I always say, funny thing about like having better sex, it's actually releasing some of that shame that you've been
Yes.
harboring, from all those times back in the day. And it's been a really beautiful, windy journey. But yes, it's like that aspect of attraction, as you mentioned. Like I was attracting emotionally unavailable partners, but really it's because I was emotionally unavailable. So it's like if I couldn't be there to be fully seen to myself, like of course no one was going to see me. Like I wasn't even
Yeah.
going to allow that to happen.
No,
So
no, it's really
yeah,
incredible, because no matter what subject we're talking about, as a spiritual teacher and someone who coaches women to work with their energy, understand their
mhm,
energy, understand what they're putting out there, and also because of that, what they're getting in return. To me, it's like the number one thing. If we can master this, almost everything in our life can change.
mhm,
Is, do I really understand the thoughts that I'm thinking? Do I really understand the vibration that others are sensing from me consciously and unconsciously? And
yeah,
recognizing that what I'm experiencing in my life right now is a mirror of my internal thoughts
yes,
and feelings. And so a lot of times when I work with women, I'm sure you do the exact same thing with your clients,
yeah,
is, you know, let's take a look at who's showing up in your life, right? What are these men like? What are these jobs like? What are these opportunities
mm,
like? And let's break it down. And then we look at the mirror and say, okay, this is me. This is what I'm putting
yeah,
out. And that's where the work begins. You
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So are you still working your other job, or are you 100% sex coach, like living, doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely 100% sex coach. There will be gigs here and there that I'll still take on because
Yeah.
it's a new entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been amazing of just like really committing myself. Like a big thing here about commitment too. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was never committing to myself, so no wonder like I wasn't attracting a partner who was able to commit. So these are these little things that you start to notice, like how committed are you to you? Like
Right.
how, can you really stick up for yourself and have the boundaries and like speak up for what you really want, what your heart wants, what your soul wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you,
Yeah.
um, I love going deep. You'll know that. You'll notice
Yes.
that.
I love it. I love
We can use that term in many ways in this conversation, can we not?
it.
Yeah, yeah, we can
Yeah.
have fun with that. But what what was the biggest aha for you in doing your own work that you felt really shifted you out of the space that you were in
Yeah.
from a self-worth perspective? And how have you been able to keep it healthy, right? Because I know a lot of times we do work, we figure out what's at the root of what we're feeling. And we start to make some shifts. We start to see some changes, but we're human, these things pop back in, and sometimes they can, take us down a rabbit hole again. But what we really want is to discover something, do the work, make the commitment, and then sustain it. So what did you realize about yourself in your own journey, and how have you been able to sustain that healing? If you have an example, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say the self-worth journey has been probably close to like a year or two. And it like, I feel like I'm coming towards like the edge of like, whoa, this is like the most worthy I've ever felt in my life. So there's definitely this progression. And like, I love how they always call it the ascension spiral. Like there's still going to be moments that are going to like come through. And like, I'm trying to give a good example of like worthiness of partnership. Honestly,
Okay.
I'm single right now, and this is something that I've been working on, is like, how do I feel worthy of the level of partnership that I'm seeking? Because
Yes.
now it's like, well, I've done a lot of work, so now I need to know I want to meet my match, right?
I'm right there with you, girl.
Yeah.
Right there with you.
Yes. So it's also this aspect, because also as I'm very sensitive to energy as well. I'm a reflector myself. So, and when it came to dating or even any type of relationships, also my work, I literally mirror the energy of that person. So
Yes.
a lot of my journey has been understanding what's mine and what's theirs.
Ooh.
And yeah, that one's massive. And it's a question that you have to ask, like, is this mine? Like,
Yes.
and I'm going to say it right now, we all have really deep self-worth issues I think as a collective.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing. So these things come up in different ways. And, if it was coming up, it's always like testing, like it's either in my work, do I feel worthy even if I don't get a client? Do I feel
Yes.
worthy even if no one shows up to that event?
Yes.
So it's being able to be like, Olivia, like, you got this, it's coming, you're doing the work, and really, like, even if you don't see the results right away, like having that trust, having that faith in yourself that you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and
Oh,
same thing, I think that comes to partnership too. Yeah. It's like, you are worthy of this partnership, and it's like, you're never going to be fully healed. Like, people really need to get rid of this idea of like being fully healed. Like, partnerships and relationships are containers for healing. And when we both can realize like, hey, I'm doing my work, you're doing your work, let's come together and let's just share space. Like, I think
right.
that's the most beautiful.
And support each
cool.
other in identifying when we're back there and we need to, be pulled back into the healed space. And I often tell so many of my clients, and again, you said it beautifully, we're never going to heal fully. That's not what we're here to do. We're here in school, earth school, we're here to learn and to continue to evolve. And can we make the shift happen faster, right? Can we stay in a vibration longer? And then when we dip down, how quickly can we get back up and pull ourselves back into the high vibration of where we are deserving, where we are whole, where we are perfect and joyful and happy, even if we're alone, knowing that, trusting, right? That person will show up when the timing is right, when there's divine timing. And so that's how I see it. If we're able just to switch out of that low vibe, back into a high vibe more quickly, then we're doing a pretty damn good job of the healing.
Yeah. And 100%, like you say, like I've noticed in myself too, like what maybe took me like 3 weeks to get over is now like 2 days. Okay.
Right.
It's like, I'm feeling it. I'm no longer like resisting to feel it and suppressing that. So now it can come through quicker, and it's like, oh, okay. Like, it's not as like, oh my gosh, it's never going to end like it was before. So that specifically with Tantra, it changed my relationship to my emotions, because it was no longer disempowering relationship. It was like, what wisdom does this emotion have? And why is it coming up? Because it's always talking to you. Your body's always talking to you, as I always say. So yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about Tantra? I know that people, when that word comes up, they have all sorts of images that come up in their mind. But when the last couple times you've mentioned it in this conversation, what I'm sensing is that it's really about understanding the feelings and kind of sitting with those feelings. So how do you define Tantra, and how do you use it in your practice?
Yeah, totally. So for me, Tantra the foundation is that there's consciousness in everything. And when you start to realize there's consciousness, it's like there's consciousness in sex and how you have sex, and then your sex affects your consciousness. So everything starts to get super connected. And when I mean consciousness, it's almost like there is constant evolution with every experience. And it also puts this other end of like, as you are the creator. So you go away from this victim mentality and start to see that, like, in the tantric way, it's like you are creating your reality and you're seeing that all these experiences are affecting you for your deeper evolution, you knowing yourself better, you knowing and loving yourself better. And that's, you can be single and do tantra, and you can be in a partnership and do tantra. And it's all about, yes, getting to know you through your body too, right? So it's like seeing that your body is sacred, and this path to spiritual awakening can be done through your body and through sex.
Got it. Okay. And so,
Yeah.
gosh, I want to ask so many questions about Tantra. I think I'm just going to have to
Yeah.
come to one of your classes. I know you have classes coming up.
Yes, yes, yes.
Ladies in South Florida, gentlemen in South Florida, there's classes that she offers. So I'm definitely going to be visiting you. But if there were something super easy that someone could do just to get started in Tantra by themselves, right? Let's set aside the partner for now, because I think what's really key is us empowering ourselves through our sexuality first, right? Before expecting someone to help empower us through our, sex together. So what's one easy thing or practice that we can do on our own that could help us work with Tantra?
Yeah. So as I always say, self-pleasure is like self-play, self-exploration. So something as simple as just breathing into your genitals is literally Tantra. So if you ever just took 5 minutes to just breathe into your genitals and put the focus there, you're going to start to realize maybe you're going to start feeling some heat. You may feel some sensation. You may feel tingling. And really, it was like through these meditative experiences that I realized I can direct my focus and my breath in a particular area of my body, and it starts to activate. And that's what's so special about like one of my experiences was that like I was able to realize like this aspect of being turned on, like this is your turn on is yours. It's not based on your partners. It's not their job really to turn you on. It's how can you feel safe enough to experience these states within your body. And that has been the most empowering, I would say.
I love that. Okay, listen up, everybody out there. Did you hear what Olivia just said? It's not up to them, it's up to us. So this is really just what it feels like to me is don't disassociate yourself while you're having sex with a partner. Like really allow yourself to be present to every single feeling, good or bad, and acknowledge it. And help yourself have the experience that you want to have. It's not up to the other person per se. I know we can have fun with that.
There's exactly.
Ultimately, by being present in your mind and in your physicality, you could guide the energy towards pleasure, essentially. Wow. Okay. Love that. Now, I'm curious if you are seeing any commonalities in the issues that are coming up for either women or men, who come to see you. Like, what's present right now?
So the funny thing, what's really present right now is how much we're not communicating. It's actually mind blowing that I really didn't expect to like have this big focus, but this month, and I'm doing a workshop specifically on this, like, what are we not communicating to our partners? Like what I'm even seeing, like people who've been in partnerships for years haven't even created safe spaces to communicate what their desires are out of fear of that partner leaving, out of fear of abandonment, out of just fears of not being loved. And it's like, how can we start to redefine what partnership is and what kind of containers we hold? And it's like this communication of like, maybe even before the communication, honestly, it's like, what are your desires? Have you taken the time to think about what do you really want? You know, what do you, have you, taken some time to explore without shaming yourself, without like being critical of yourself, of what do you truly want to experience?
Right.
That goes for sex, for relationships, for love, in all aspects. So really, it's like, yes, it starts with us doing that inner work to then be able to communicate to our partners, you know, this is what we want. And
Yeah.
then feeling safe that even if they say no, it's okay. You know,
Right.
it's okay. Like either you'll find another partner who will be willing to meet you there, or maybe that relationship starts to change into something else. You know, there's so much expansion and communication, and we just need to create those safe spaces for each other.
Yeah. And that's a gift
Yeah.
in and of itself. I think sometimes unconsciously and intuitively, we
Yeah.
know when maybe someone's not the right partner for
Oh
us,
yeah. Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Even without having the communication
Yeah.
but we live in that fear. Like, can I even say
Mhm.
what's on my mind? Can I hear those words
Yeah.
coming out of my mouth? And do I want to? Because I know that this person is not going to appreciate it. And then I'm going to be alone again,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But how fierce is that for us to be able to step into that and say, okay, I'm going to be fierce by saying what I need to say, opening my heart, being vulnerable, knowing that it may result in this relationship ending and me being alone again. And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Ah, that's tough. Okay, incredible. Thank you for all of that. This is so fascinating. Um, I want to dive into a little bit about, the unique way you do your work, because
Yeah.
when I read a little bit about you, you talked about, obviously, this is spiritual work, right? This is not
Yeah.
just, hey, let's talk about sex. This is deep spiritual work. You have gifts that you have recognized, I'm assuming, since childhood, and you have brought those gifts into your work and you're really like utilizing them. So I want to dive into spirituality. I want to dive
Yeah.
into, those gifts. When did they show up? How did
Yeah.
you recognize them? How did you elevate them? And how are you using them today in your work?
Totally. Yeah. You know, it's funny that you said like I've had them since childhood, but technically, like I repressed them so much. I think that my story has always been like I was obsessed with like I always wanted to be a gypsy. I wanted to be a psychic, but I thought you were born psychic.
Uh-huh.
So I had this idea that like, oh my gosh, like I guess I just like I didn't get the gift. And like there's some random stories. I remember like my family saying like, oh, it skips a generation. I'm like, what? So until I started doing and exploring, you know, I did meet a lot of people that actually expanded, you know, my concept of like that magic can exist, and that
Yes.
your psychic abilities, everyone's psychic, it's just a muscle. And
Right.
it's the more that you practice, the more you start to listen to your intuition, because you know your guides are always talking to you. It's just I know myself, I wasn't really listening.
Right.
So, and I was always like disregarding. I'm like, oh, that's just my imagination. But like, no, it's actually like even whether it's symbols, whether it's like everyone has a different way of receiving information, and it's definitely, I would say, accelerated once I, you know, said yes to the coaching, started the work. But ultimately it was about me practicing with my friends. And luckily, like I found friends that are also into this like witchy stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know, I practiced alone, I practiced with friends. I got to really get the confirmation. Which, you know, it was always my story was like I was always seeking confirmation that I got the right answer. But it did
Yes.
help me, you know, it helped me
Yeah.
really get more confident of like, at this point I can say things that like I'm getting a crazy message that like it sounds like your grandma's coming through and she's saying XYZ. I know it sounds weird, take it or leave it, but I just want to say it because they keep repeating it. And yeah, what I've learned is like, yes, once I say it, whether it resonates, it doesn't, at least I said it. And chances are usually the person's like, wow, like, how did you know that? And da da. So it's been a big evolution of trusting myself and what's coming through, and then being okay with the rejection or like, you know, even if they're like, no, that sounds so crazy. I'll be like, okay, well, at least I tried, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I would have to
So
agree. Like the
yeah.
trust is so essential, and having that safe community that you can practice with. I remember one of the sessions that I had with doing energy work with a friend and a client,
Mhm.
and I said, can I say this? The weirdest message is coming to me. I just feel so stupid saying this. And I said to her, I just have to tell you that I'm a bowling ball. Like the picture of a bowling ball is coming through, and it's coming through as I'm touching this area of your body, which means this. And after the session, she said to me, "You're not going to believe it, but what I've been
Yeah.
struggling with is one of my best friends who was a bridesmaid, who, you know, a childhood friend growing up with me, um, ever since she met this man and went off and experienced a life with him, and he apparently, I guess, is a little bit toxic, and she just had to kind of step
Yeah.
away from the whole scenario. Together they own a bowling a bowling.
Wow. Yes. Crazy.
I'm never gonna not share what's on my mind,
Yeah.
because you just never know. And that is, you know, to your point, in this container, where we're sharing this talk today, you know, it is a spiritual, you know,
Yeah.
evolution container where as women who want to develop their spiritual gifts and begin to trust their spiritual gifts, we get to play with all of that and give ourselves
Yeah.
permission to play and practice. And so it's such a gift that to yourself, that you were able to you know, create the space for yourself to really listen. How does it, just curious, how does it show up for you? Is it images, or do you hear voices, or do you just get like a
Yeah.
thought?
So I would say in the beginning, and thank you for saying that aspect of play, because I was always, you know, me being me, I wanted to figure it out. But until I only took it as like curiosity and play and was in that frequency, that's when I was able to get the most like
Yeah.
images, you know, images or intuitive
Mm.
hits. I would say it started for me, it was a lot of embodiment. So I would actually, it started with a lot of emotional channeling. I didn't know at the time what was happening, but I guess my channel was so open, and I was doing work, it would come through, the emotion would come through me. So it was either like I would cry, I'd feel this deep sadness,
Mm.
or I'd feel this deep excitement. We did like also circles where we would literally like channel either people or different energies, and I usually would take on the personality of that person. Like it's so funny, like my mannerisms would change and what I was saying. So I was like, yeah, there were some interesting ones there. Um,
Wow.
and then it started to shift, like, now sometimes too, like, it got to a point where I was like, "Okay, well, if I'm feeling nauseous, I don't wanna purge for this client, like, this is their stuff, so I'm gonna,
Right.
like, send it back." So there's little agreements that I also made of, like, I'm okay with, releasing emotion, right? Like, helping release emotion, you know, that there's certain ones that, like, I'm comfortable with. But now I would say it's actually gotten more energetic where, like, in a healing container, or even when I do breath work, it starts to happen naturally. I just allow myself to serve as the channel. And it's almost like I'm being told, go here, go to this person, move your arms this. So it's been a lot more of like flowy of how to like move the energy, send the energy, take the energy. And it's like this really beautiful, like flowy dance. So maybe whatever guides I'm working with now, that's like what they're telling me to do.
Yes.
So yeah, but it's been super fun and it's an evolution. That's why I like it too. It's like, yeah. And I would say now also messages. Like for me, it's always I get a word, I get a sentence.
Okay.
And it's like, and I know it's not me when it keeps repeating. Like it's almost like on loop. And I'm like, okay, okay, I'll
Got
say it.
it. Yes.
So
So
that's been the,
fascinating.
yeah, the
Yeah, I
most
love
exciting
to ask
part.
that question because I've recognized in being in the spiritual world and the various communities with
Yeah.
healers, and again, to your point, we're all healers. We just have to cultivate it, and it shows
Mhm.
up differently for all of us. That um, getting to experience everyone's gifts and how they show up in different ways is just so
Yeah.
magical. It really is. And for me as a practitioner, um, if I work with someone who I know needs to work with a particular person because of that person's gift, I'm like, okay, you're
Mm.
going to work with me here, and then I'm going to send you to this person,
Yeah.
and you're going to
Yeah.
work with them, you know, on this aspect because they experience the gift in a different way that can help them to heal,
Beautiful.
you know, much faster. And so we get to support each other in this container by understanding what each other's gifts are. And
Yeah.
so that's so special. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming then, based on the energy work and just recognizing one of the events you have coming up, which is like um enjoying sexuality through the different chakras, like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm assuming that when you meet with a client, you intuitively just kind of feel like this is how I have to work with them. I either need to work with them energetically, or, you know, to help release stuck
Yeah.
energy in their bodies. So how does, do you work differently with different clients, or do you have a process that
Yeah.
you kind of do the same with everybody?
Yeah, so I was certified in the Vita method, which is Layla Martin's vital integrated tantric approach. So
Okay.
there's a set method that I use there, and then it's like plus I put in my own flavor. And yes, I do get intuitively. I kind of like I have like a idea of what we're gonna work on before I gotta like tune in. I'm like, what exercises, what tools are we gonna use? But ultimately, the special part of the work is that like um, I have like, let's say, a bunch of different tools, and based on what comes through, we then can start to explore and excavate it more with a particular tool. And yeah, like I guess now it's most of the work is embodiment work. So I teach, I really have my clients experience the different energy and what it feels like in their body. So they really feel safe to feel it. And I think that's been the biggest thing is like once you're safe, once you feel safe that you could feel it, like consciously stepping into emotion is way different because you can
Yeah.
pull yourself out of it. And honestly, at that point, it's what I realize is like once you start to feel it, it starts to change. Like what I say is emotion is energy in motion.
Yeah.
And it has also all these different, it's like such a flow. So it's like you're never like, oh my God, I'm gonna be sad forever. It's actually that sadness sometimes then turns into laughter and then to pleasure. And it like takes on this really flowy embodiment
Yeah.
that has really been beautiful. So yeah, did I answer your question? Sorry, I think I got a
Yes,
tangent
yes,
there.
you totally did. So
Yeah.
you use the Vita method, which is
Yes.
a tantric method, and then you add your own, your own
Yeah.
woo-woo magic there.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Yeah. And I think that it's important to go back to this concept of play when we're talking about sexuality,
Yeah.
because I know that it's still very taboo for a lot of individuals, men and women.
Right.
And so I love talking about it. I love being open about it, because it's the only way that we're going to heal anything associated with our sexuality, and really being open to experiencing the beauty and the sacredness of
Yeah.
sexuality by yourself and with a partner, if you so
Yeah.
choose. um I go back to nothing happens, there's nothing about who we are and our bodies that isn't 100% on purpose, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
everything about our sexuality
Yeah.
is purposeful. Everything is
Yeah.
purposeful. And so the more that we're able to tune into it, either by ourselves or with a sex coach, a tantra
Yeah.
coach, right? Because I just feel that after you having shared what tantra means and the Vita method, it's a very spiritual method. It's not just about
Hmm.
having great sex, and it's so much
Yeah.
more than that.
Yeah.
And again, sexual energy helps us to be creative, to be the creators of
Exactly.
our lives. And I know you
Yeah.
can probably share more about that, but I'm assuming that part of this journey for you has been
Mhm.
to utilize sexual energy creatively. How does that work?
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. So, as you mentioned, that aspect of play and innocence, like I really, with my work, I want to bring that back to, sex. I feel like we've really lost that like sense of play and exploration and curiosity because the truth is there's so much that even I'm still learning, and I already done so much. Like I can only imagine like what else. So it's so beautiful when you start to go through with a new like this new lens of like let me learn something new. Let me set an intention before this experience. And it's going to take on a whole different flavor once you just bring in an intention in.
Yes.
And yes. And then, as you mentioned, that creative energy. So, one of my favorite workshops that I do in Miami is the sex magic. I call it lover's breath, but it's really sex magic or tantric manifestation embodiment breath. And
Yes.
it's a breath work that, yes, you're using your sexual energy and you're moving it through each chakra. And really, what that energy is doing, it's healing each chakra and
Mm,
it's really communicating to you where do I have resistance? Where can I open more? Where can I be more of my expressive self? And when we start to move that energy and take it up top, we refine it. And it's like in this state, that's when we usually by this point, once you move that energy up, you're really in that altered state, which is easier to call in your desire, your manifestation, and become that energetic match to what you're calling in. So
Sign
yeah.
me up. Sign me up,
Yeah,
people. So
yeah,
yeah,
it's a
I
fun one.
actually
Yeah.
looked it up, and if I'm not mistaken, I know by the time this actually comes out, on the podcast,
Yeah.
the date will have passed, but that doesn't matter. So I
Yeah.
think you have one coming up on the 24th. Is
I
that the date?
do. Yeah, you got the date
Yeah,
right.
February
Yeah.
24th. So I plan on
Yeah.
being there, but I also just want to throw out an
Oh,
invitation if you ever desire to do an event like that for our community of women here.
yeah.
I would love to invite you to do that, and I think that they would absolutely appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that would be so much fun. But I if I can make it, I will be there, and we can meet in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Oh, I love, love, love that. Yeah, I mean, manifestation is
Yeah.
all about energy. It's really all about your
Yeah.
vibe. And going back to this concept of playing, when we set the intention that what I'm about to get into, I used to define it as hard, or
Mhm.
not fun,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the energy automatically is going to resonate downward, right? Where
Totally.
nothing
Yeah.
creative can happen. But
Yeah.
if we set the intention that, yeah, this can be hard, but I'm going to come at it with the idea that I'm just going to explore and play, then it just changes the whole dynamic of
Totally.
of the healing, or of what you can manifest through the energy. So
Yeah.
super powerful stuff. So as a reflector, we're talking
Yes.
human design now.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a manifesting generator.
Uh,
But I'm assuming that you need quite a bit of time by yourself, to kind of get back all your energy. Would you consider yourself a highly sensitive person?
so yeah, it's been such a fascinating journey being a reflector, especially as an entrepreneur now, and like
Yep.
understanding what my cycle is to create versus work versus like rest.
Yes.
Um, so ultimately I am a people person. So I am energized by people. I love people. I love connecting. But I've gotten better at when I enter in a space or a room, I can say that now, because I now have been more alone in my energy, I know what's not me. So it's been really this understanding of like, okay, that's okay, Olivia. It's not like I used to literally internalize everything that I would be feeling as like, oh my God, this is me. Like, I'm insecure. Da, 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 I'm so shy. Why am I like feeling this way? And I'm like, what the heck did I just go through? And then I started to realize I was like, oh, I was just feeling a lot of people's stuff here.
Yes.
Um, so it's been before I used to do a lot of clearing with like, I love like the whole Epsom salt
Yep.
shower, like at the end, because I'm like, I don't have time for a bath always, but in the shower, have it then like visualize it draining down. I think now I do just a lot of more intentional of like grounding the energy back into the earth, having
Yes.
the earth recycle the energy. Um, and it's been more of like now I'm like accepted myself fully of being a reflector.
Yeah.
And now it's almost I choose like, okay, let me kind of take a look, how have I been feeling this week? Maybe it's just like whatever cycle I'm in. And yeah, now I really like love to play with it too, of like a big thing now and like in dating, I'm starting to realize, oh, I feel that partner's stuff. And I'm
Wow.
like, because now I know it's their stuff because I've worked through a lot of it. So now I'm
Yes.
being more aware of like, sure, a little bit of it is me because there's some resonance, right?
Right.
But I'm able to pull myself out of it quicker and realize, what's not good for me or what's good for me
Yeah.
or what do we need to talk about. So
I love
yeah,
it. So Ellie
yeah,
just joined and commented, and
oh
so
yeah,
thank you for being here live with us. And
yeah,
I think one of the most important things you've shared today, and there's been a lot, is this idea of those of us who are highly sensitive,
hmm
to be able to say, oh, this is not mine. And
yeah,
just claiming that in that moment in and of itself helps you to release it, so
yeah,
that it doesn't affect you, doesn't affect your, um, how you feel in your body. And
yeah,
then having to kind of get away and clear your energy, which for a lot of people, that can take a while if you're super highly sensitive or if you're a
hmm
reflector. I have a client who's been with me for quite a long time, and she's just an exceptional woman and leader. And she's the only
hmm
other reflector that I know so far, and that I've worked with. And she has designed, because in this group, it's all about like designing the life that is perfect for you, for who you are, you know, based on your human design, based on your astrology, based on, you know, all sorts of things that we talk about. And we get to be the designers of our life. And so she has created the kind of life that literally super successful, works from home, has a complete virtual team. And the way that she decides to show up and being among others is through, I will do it if I'm teaching or training and I'm up on stage, or if I get to travel, right? And then she has her methods of clearing her energy, you know, understanding what's hers and what isn't, creating strong boundaries, stepping away when it's time. And it's so beautiful to be around other people who have done the work and have really honed in on, this is how I can support myself, being who I am, and still have an exceptional, you know, joyous life, connected life, right? Because I think a lot of highly sensitive people don't feel that they can create a lot of connection because of their sensitivities.
And the big thing is, you know, the sensitivity is my superpower. That is what makes me, you know, successful at being a coach. And once I really accepted and honored that about myself, I mean, honestly, it was a long journey of honoring my sensitivity. And I also realized, it's always levels too. Like you're always leveling up. Like the more safe that I feel, to feel, just the more magic that happens, because in that space, you can then feel all the beautiful feelings, like the ecstasy, the bliss, the pleasure. You have to still be willing to, you know, feel the whole spectrum and know that you're going to be okay no matter what. So, but I would love to connect with that for other reflector, because it is hard to find reflectors that are, I've been trying to figure out my method of like how to run the business, because it's a journey.
Oh, I would love to. Absolutely. I'll connect you guys. And, so I want to dive into, I know that you were a co-author of a book called Sacred Feminine Rising. And so speaking to the sacred feminine and goddess work, like how do you integrate that? How do you work with goddess energy?
So that was an exploration, I would say, within the last year that I started to tap into. And to me, part of the self-worth journey. So I love that this is tying back in. So in my sessions, I would be like, I'd be like, can like Isis come through? Like, is anyone available? Like maybe Kuan Yin, maybe you can help a little bit. And the whole message, and luckily, because my roommate's intuitive, so we were really getting into this work. And like, you know, the cards were saying like, claim us, like tell us to come through, ask for us and we will come through. But you also have to really like, it's like doing this with a humbleness, an honor, a respect, but also a belief, because I was still in this thing of like, well, I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe it's going to happen. And once I started to really just trust that whatever guide's coming through, and like really being able to call in and feel worthy of calling in the goddess, like that was a huge thing of like, you know, am I like worthy enough to like work with this energy? And it's like, yes, like we're all worthy of working with these energies, and that they want to help us. And it's been beautiful. Like even the whole embodiment aspect of calling in what it feels like to be a goddess, and like they're here to like show you creatively how to step into that more. And whether it could be your higher self as well, you know, it's like there's all these different aspects and sides of you, and like that multidimensional self of yours, you know, because they say your guides are actually you, but you know, that's a whole other topic.
Absolutely. You know, I think the thing about spirituality, I consider myself, I'm a high priestess, but I consider myself an eclectic high priestess in the sense that I pull from all sorts of things. I pull from traditional religion. I was raised Catholic, but there's a lot about Catholicism that just doesn't jive with me. But I work with Jesus Christ energy. He's my guy, you know. I work with archangels. I work with shamanism. I work with whatever my soul is guided to work with for myself and for, you know, for those who I work with. It brings just so much joy to have that flexibility to decide and to feel, this is what this does for me, and this is how this heals me, this is how this takes me deeper into practice, and having fun with that. It's so funny, and it's not a coincidence. Right before you jumped onto this call, I realized that
Uh-huh.
I didn't have any earrings on. And so I just went for the earrings that I wanted, but in my voice, I heard, put your Ankh earrings on.
Oh,
And
yay.
I said, I don't have time. So here we go. Of course, Isis was the first goddess that, you know, that flowed
Yeah,
right out of your mouth. So she's
yeah.
definitely present. And she's been showing up quite a bit for me recently. And I love working with her energy. So that's so much fun. Oh my gosh, Olivia, I can't believe we've been talking for 45 minutes now.
Okay.
We've covered quite a lot and I've had
Yeah,
so much fun. This has been a great conversation. And I just want to say thank you for
yeah.
being fierce enough to put yourself out there and to do this really, really important work. And I'm excited to get to know your work more deeply and to invite, you know, everyone who is listening in on this, whether it's in my private Facebook group or whether it's in the podcast, to just get to know you and your work a little bit more deeply. So what's the best way that others can, you know, connect with you, reach out to you, come to your events, all of that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram. So my Instagram is Pretty Gypsy Dreams,
Okay.
and there I post reels, and then I also do all the events are going to be on there, as well as my email list. So through my
Okay.
website or even on that Instagram, that link, you can access my email list. Yeah, but yeah, there's so many events happening this month. Like it was the first month that I'm like, oh my gosh, like so many things are happening, which is great. This is what I wanted. So
Yes. And your website
yeah,
is besuccessful.com. Is that correct?
besuccessful.com.
Be
So
sex. So, and that's, and everyone out there, it's sex, be successful.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just want to, I'm typing this into the group. So it's
ESSFUL.com.
BESSFUL.com. Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. So we got your IG there, we got your website there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So in closing, is there anything that we didn't talk about today or anything that you would like to share with everyone out there before we wrap up today?
Really, as we were mentioning, the goddess work and all that, I really see that as like your healing journey is meant to be colorful. You're meant to have fun. It's meant to be expansive and like, yes, like I also wish I knew sooner that I could lean on other people and
Mm,
work with other people to help me shift and expand quicker. So thank you so much, Renee, for creating all these safe spaces for, women to connect, for people to connect in general and to talk about these things because it's so needed. It's so needed. Like I've had, the dark nights of my soul that like, luckily I did have support and I had the tools, but I just want people to have more access to these tools and to know that like they're not alone, that we're in this together and there's so many shifts happening and I've seen it myself as well. Like even as you said, people do need this work and they're maybe scared right now, but there's going to come a point where you're going to be like, okay, I'm ready to do this. And then
yeah,
you're like, okay, what do I do? And
yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing I said, like fun, fun, fun. Fun is like play is always a thing that I always say. And yeah.
Yeah, I can see your fun. I can see so what are we'll wrap up with this if you know. Do you know your sun, moon, and rising
Yeah. So my son in Western, right?
in Western
My
astrology?
Yeah. So I'm an Aries, Libra.
Of course.
So
Okay.
a
I'm like,
lot of
she's a
air,
fire.
a little bit
She's
of
a fire
fire.
sign
Yeah.
sun for sure. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
Aries is there. I love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you're all about harmony and balance and supporting others and living a beautiful life. Like you're doing it. So congratulations. I'm
Thank you.
super
Thank you so
thrilled for
much.
your journey and I will continue following you for sure. And thank you for making the
Mm.
space and sharing a little bit of
Yes.
yourself with us today. All
Yes.
right,
Thank you so much.
Olivia. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.